Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I shall give my opinion on what I think is the best entry-level Rolex watch that you can buy right now. This is actually the Oyster Perpetual in 41mm. Now for those who do not know, Oyster Perpetual is actually the entry-level range of Rolex and it's actually been around for a longest time. It is actually the original watch that Rolex made. It is not as popular as the sports model, such as Submariner, Daytona or GMT that you might have heard of, but I definitely think that this is the most underrated watch out there at the moment. Now, thank you to the Tiffany Blue Patek watch that was launched in December, the similar version of the Oyster Perpetual 41 has skyrocketed in its value. But I still think that the one in the gold down here and the one in the blue down here is still underrated, and they are absolutely beautiful. If not for the hype, I think most people will actually choose these two different watches. But unfortunately, the Tiffany blue dial is just way more popular. Look at just how beautiful this there you go. Okay, look at how beautiful these watches actually reflect the sunlight. You can see that it's almost black, it's almost silver, and then you turn right at a certain angle, it's just gold, and the blue just sparkles a lot. Okay, so how did I bought this watch? I actually got this one first. And how it started was that I was actually kind of looking for like a lighter dial watch because most of my watches have black color dial. Some of you may know that I had the Submariner, the GMT, and they're all just the black color dials. And most of the Rolex watches in sports models are actually black color dial. So I just wanted something different. And the next step up would be something really expensive, like the Panda or like the Explorer white dial. So I just wanted something cheaper and easy to wear. And the good thing about this watch as well is that it has no date. All my other watches have date, and it becomes a bit annoying after a while because I do have to adjust the date every time when I put on the watch, or I just have to ignore the date window. And it's kind of hard to ignore the date window on the Rolex because of the Cyclops magnifying it. So I just wanted a simple watch. So that's how it came about. And then I was scourging through the Carousel, which is like an eBay version of Singapore, and there was a seller selling this for just about 15% above retail. And I just thought, you know what, I just gonna bite the bullet. And this watch was actually he was the first owner. He actually picked it up from the AD, and I was like, you know what, you're such a lucky guy. Okay, how does it feel on the wrist? I think it's great. With this bracelet, which is a brushed metal, you get a very nice sort of like a subtle look, and it's not too flashy. And at the same time, the case size is actually quite thin. Okay, so it's actually quite dressy as well. So I actually use this more as a dress watch than the sports watch. And with this flip lock, it's not as good as the Submariner's glide lock, but I think it's still very sturdy, very safe. There's no chance of it coming out on its own. There's also an easy-link extension right here. So it is an entry-level watch, but like you still get a lot of the good stuff that comes with the more expensive models. Alright, because I've loved that watch so much, and then about 2 weeks after that, I started looking for other watches again. And at the same time, I didn't want to spend too much money. The ones in the colored dials are just going for too much money now. So I just thought, you know what, I want to get something that's not so expensive. So I started looking around, and I found this blue colored dial from a reseller. I just thought, you know what, wow, this blue dial is really quite different. So I had the Yachtmaster in blue before, so I've seen that dial, and I really love the color. And I think this is very similar to that one. This is also quite similar to the Datejust in blue. Some people call it a Joe Biden watch. I think that just, take down the whole purpose of the watch. Okay, I have also seen the Sky Dweller blue. That one is a much darker blue. The Daytona blue in white gold is also different. It's much more sparkly. So this one really has a unique character on its own, and I really quite like it. And right after I got this, I put these two watches side by side and just asked all my friends, like, which one do you think is better? All of them go for the blue one. And I think that kind of justifies the higher aftermarket price of this blue dial as well. With the silver one, you can pick it up just above retail, but the blue one definitely goes for a lot higher. Not as high as the other color watches though. So this started became my go-to watch all the time for a very long time. Then you can see the proportion of the 41mm, although I have a fairly small wrist, it kind of just sits perfectly, like just nice. And in certain light, it gets into a black color. And that's the reason why I didn't want to get the black color dial, because with the black color dial, There's just not much going for it, and like I said, I already have too many black color dial watches, so I just wanted something different. So how do I compare these watches to the other ones? If you have the desire to go for a sports model, you still have to go for the GMT or the Submariner or Daytona, because those are the real sports model, and those have the bezel. That's really the standout feature of the sports model. With this watch, you don't get anything on the bezel. It is just smooth. However, in terms of wearing experience, I find that this is still as good, if not better, than any of the other sports model. It's light, it's slim, and the dial color is really nice. Specifically, I also wanted a no-date watch, and you just can't get that from any other sports model unless you get a no-date sub. But then again, you lose the dial color as well. Even this Sunray dial, it's beautiful, and I can pair this with a lighter outfit, or like for me, most of my clothes are in the black color sort of tone, so this watch fits perfectly. If you do have a slightly smaller wrist, or if you're a lady, or if you want to share a watch between a girl and a guy, I would say you can try the 36mm. I actually had the chance to try a 36mm, and I think it is quite nice, but once I compared it right next to a 41, I just think there's no comparison for me. Like, the 41 just looks a lot better on me. Also with the 41, you get a lot more dial for your money, so that the whole surface of the watch is just a lot better. Okay, what else? The movement of the watch has about 70 hours power reserve. Now that's even better than the last generation Submariner and GMT. I know some of you don't care for power reserve, but personally I do. We rotate the watches around, so it's kind of nice to have this watch sitting in the drawers, and 2 or 3 days later you can still pick it up and wear it without adjusting the time. I also think this is a good watch for traveling, in case you don't want it to be seen, you don't want it to catch so much attention. It flies under the radar and under the cuff, so you can easily hide the watch. And I think being the entry level line, you can never be caught out of place. Like, no one can ever say that you're trying to flex or you're trying to show off watches, because it's just such a functional watch that no one can blame you for wearing an Oyster Perpetual. Where I see this watch going, the price of these watches are touching the Datejust 41, and it's kind of strange because Datejust 41 is the ultimate Rolex watch that everyone talks about, and it has a date function which actually costs a lot more in terms of retail price, but aesthetically I think this is actually better. Of course, you can decide for yourself, and if you do have a Datejust, I would just say, stretch a little further and get into a GMT or Submariner. With the Oyster Perpetual, it really holds its own. You just can't get this in any of the other Rolex line. And comparing to other brands, I think you don't get as much horological aspect for the money, but I think it's totally worth it. Alright, let's take a look at this. As you can see with this blue color dial, it has this amazing rich hue and rich tone to it. And with the Oyster 41 in Sunray dial, again, the gold color marking is just really quite something else. Yes, sometimes people say that it makes you look a bit older, but I think it's actually quite something that I can accept. I mean, I'm already in my 30s, going to be mid-30s very soon, so I think I can actually take that. Alright, so the blue color dial, it's amazing. And it's very easy to read the watch. Legibility is definitely a good plus. Now, if I put the watch on the side, you can see it's actually quite thin. You can watch my other videos to compare it with the other sports model. And with the flip lock class, easy. With the brushed metal, very resistant to scratches, and I'm not worried about it being too flashy. So on a normal day, that's what it looks like. I think you can't go wrong with this. I think you can never go wrong with this. Alright, let's check out the Sunray dial. Again, flip lock. I have it sized slightly different, just depending on how I feel like wearing them. Alright, just look at the hour marker and the silver hand. Sorry, the second hand. At night time, they do loom up really nicely. And you can see the 3D shape of the hour markers. There just isn't another watch quite like this one. And no one is gonna know that this is a expensive watch, well, relatively speaking, depending where you live, of course. Alright, and that's it. So again, comparing these two watches, if you have the budget, I would definitely stretch for the blue one. If you already have other dark colored dial watches, then by all means go for the silver dial if you want something different. But with these two, it's just really hard for me to decide either one of them. I actually had the news from the Rolex AD last time that they do allow dial changes, so you can swap this dial for technically any other color dial within the production time. But since the popularity of the Tiffany dial, they kind of stopped that now, and it is on the waiting list. Doesn't mean that you will definitely get one, it just means that you have to check in time to time if they have it in stock. What that means is that it's never gonna be in stock, and you might as well just wait for it at the AD. Alright, thank you.